Great. Thanks for the reminder, Boris. So first of all, I haven't gotten a chance to introduce myself. So I'm Gal. I'm coming from NVIDIA. Before I joined NVIDIA, I was for 4 years at Red Hat, working on OpenShift. And in NVIDIA, I'm part of basically the orchestration group. We are doing things for DPU provisioning and management, DPU services, single DPU, multiple DPUs, the data centers, and so on. So really touching a lot of those different areas. It's been a while since I attended OPI, since any of us attended OPI, as a matter of fact. I think my last time was around January. Oscar were here a couple of more times, and we had a different representative for NVIDIA joining those calls on and off. But now we kind of decided that we can and should take a bigger role in this effort. So for the first meeting, as I wrote to you in Slack, I basically thought about covering the existing discussion that is already in progress and get a final resolution on it in order to raise it to a vote, hopefully raise it to a vote, and get to know the people that are participating a bit. So if you don't mind, I would like to start with the second topic to get to know you a bit. So if we can have like a round table of everyone stating which company represents, personal areas of expertise. So that could be things you work on in the past, things that you are interested in personally, project that you maintain, stuff like that. The most important bullet, in my opinion, is what areas of OPI in this specific group do you feel that your team can contribute to and lead, or at least take part of. And the last section is the amount of capacity that you actually have for this project personally. So I know that's a lot to remember. I have those 4 bullets in Slack. So if that's okay, I will just nominate you one after the other according to alphabetical order that I see here in the participants, so I won't skip anyone. So Alok, I hope that I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Myself, Alok Gupta, representing Ericsson in this group, and my personal areas of expertise. I've been involved in a couple of different things, mainly around the cloud networking domain. That's what I've been involved with, and been part of different Linux Foundation projects, for instance, Network Plumbing Working Group, where the Multus and the related Meta CNIs has been discussed and developed. Other than that, been actively involved in ORAN community as well. They have the different work groups. I've been part of the work group 6 related to the OCloud provisioning and lifecycle management of the cloud resources. That's another interesting area I've been involved in contributing to the standardizations there. So yeah, taking a role of a solution architect in my company, responsible for the cloud infrastructure provisioning aspects, and now started evaluating IPU, DPU devices, how we can leverage those hardware and do the offloading when it comes to networking, as well as in this group, like how we can actually provision those devices in the data center. Right, so that's the areas I've been looking and accountable for in my unit. And then Okay, it's a bit of a big list. So I'm taking a look at parallelly in that direction as well. So yeah, so I mean, in this group, I'm the only one from my company who is attending every now and then the team lifecycle weekly calls. Similarly, we have the team API, where I have a couple of other team members who've been contributing, attending, and discussing the um, the different areas related to how we can offload different um, hardware capacity capabilities to the IPU DPU devices and different CNIs that can be introduced and leveraged with this piece of hardware. When it comes to capacity, I'm so far been involved in OPI on a best effort basis. So mostly doing a sort of a monitoring role so far. However, started looking into some of the approved specifications as well. Have done a bit of a collaborative efforts with Intel as well, which me and my team has demonstrated in DSC as well a couple of months back. And so down the line, would like to have a discussions about what's also already been approved. For instance, secure ZTP specifications. What are the further improvement areas and some of the extensions that is possible in that specific area. So yeah, that's all from my side.
Thanks a lot, Alok. One question I have, you said that one of the things that you started is to evaluate the provisioning and deployment of DPU, IPU. Now, when I look at the work that has been done so far in this group, we mainly looked at, SZTP, of course, as the standard we adopted, but a lot about boot coordination, host to DPU, inventory, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Are those the areas that you would envision this group working on, or do you envision different things that are required from your point of view to dig into? I have a couple of topics in mind, but I won't throw them just to not put ideas in your head.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, these are definitely the interested area, and definitely we would like to like collaborate and definitely contribute to some of these. For instance, you mentioned about the discovery and provisioning and inventory and boot sequencing. Definitely, I mean, on a high level use cases and the discussions that we are having internally within the organization. So yeah, so how we actually first of all discover the new piece of hardware, that's one thing, and then there should be a sequential boot mechanism, right? So what should be the sort of booted first, followed by what are the different subcomponents, for instance, whether it has to be the IPU or DPU, the ARM based system, right? I mean, that should be booted and then followed by the host itself, right? And that we had been discussing in this group as well on with a couple of options, right? The coordinated reboot and those things. So yeah, would definitely would like to have discussions and alignment on those options related to the sequential boot. For instance, that's one of the hot topics that we recently discussed. And yeah, and then the inventory, right? So I think we discussed in the past a couple of options. Redfish is one of those that has not been progressed very well, but that has been there on table as one of the alternatives. So that could be another area where I can bring some thoughts and some perspective from my organization to the scope.
Okay, that sounds perfect. So I take from your answer that most of the work that we've been doing so far in this group directly related to work that you've been doing internally in your company regarding IPU, DPU, and all that, right?
Yes.
That's great to hear. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. Boris, if you don't mind, I'll skip you just because I think everyone here knows who Boris is, and everything that's been done so far is the things that Boris is interested in. So, Bracha?
Hi, so I'm from NVIDIA. I just started to get into the DPU provisioning, so I hope to study from you and also to contribute from my knowledge. This is what I have to say. This is my first time in this forum, so nice to meet you, everyone.
Past project that you've been working on, areas of expertise?
I'm currently an architect in the host management architecture team, working on the DPU. I joined NVIDIA 5 months ago. Before that, I was working at Intel as a system architect. So I bring with me some knowledge about management and provisioning from Intel, where the focus was more on client side, and now my focus is more on the server side.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. I will skip to the next one. Kitan, again, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Correct me
Yes,
if
you
I'm
are.
wrong.
It's okay. Close enough. Hi. So
Best
this is
effort.
Chetan Sehgal. So I'm from Marvell. I've been in various software dev and QA teams and POC teams and so from the OPI standpoint, OPI is, of course, obviously very important to Marvell. The objectives of the standard-based open infrastructure are critical for systems from multiple vendors to coexist. So it's the activities of this working group are also very important. So we are implementing various flows and also making hardware decisions, and the input of OPI provides helps us align these activities. So that's the overall motivation for being in OPI calls, and that with respect to various accomplishments that OPI has achieved so far under Boris' lead. So we have, for example, one example is with respect to provisioning based on SZTP. We have implemented pretty much the complete full-featured protocol on our platforms, which we will be happy to contribute. Yeah, so we are monitoring all the different activities that OPI is doing, and hopefully we'll be able to contribute in whichever respect those are needed.
That's wonderful to hear. So I'll dig into what you said here a bit. So you said that you implemented the SZTP feature on your platform and you would love to contribute it. Now, there is the SZTP client which OPI has implemented. I assume that you used it in order to test your stuff. What other aspect of the SZTP protocol are actually relevant to contribution from the internal work that you've been doing so far in Marvell?
Yeah, we can. So we have. I'm not sure what the status of the integration lab is. We can, if that is available at some point, then we can contribute our boards as well, and then and make sure that the participants are have access to our code, and then we can run that as well. But mostly about, I would say 90% of the full protocol is already implemented. All the features that are available.
Sheldon, do you have a timeline when
Thanks a lot.
Marvell can contribute to the code itself so we can review it?
Sure. So we have Prasoon on the call as well. So Prasoon, would you have any feedback on that?
Yeah, at this point, we don't have any specific dates, but yeah, let me brainstorm that internally and get back to you, Boris.
Thanks, Prasoon. We also don't believe in dumping the entire chunk of code by any company. So having some kind of planned schedule that we can divide into reviewable pieces of code, I think will be best approach. So yeah, take your time, review it, and get back to us. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah.
That would definitely be great. And even before reviewing the code and actual contribution, maybe it would be nice to, even in Slack, describe a bit what you can or plan to contribute, and where does it fit into the existing work that has been done, so we can get some background and maybe think internally, each provider, each team, to see if it aligns with any existing efforts that we have. If that makes sense.
Sure.
Okay, anything more to add?
No, we continue to monitor and align our activities to what OPI is also working on. So that's great.
Okay, good to know. Okay, next one is Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia Krieger. I represent Red Hat. I'm a senior principal software engineer, and I've been around the space of OpenStack and a number of projects within that community for almost a decade now, specifically in bare metal provisioning, automated lifecycle management, and ultimately integration. In terms of areas we think we're looking to contribute, I think at this point in time, we have people working with the API working group, but from the provisioning lifecycle aspect, we're kind of keeping our ear to the ground, keeping an eye on things. And largely that's because our customers tend to expect holistic integrated solutions. And just zero-touch provisioning doesn't really cut that. It is one piece of the puzzle. And I think we're going to kind of wait and see where vendors land on provisioning and drivers and firmware and interfaces. And we recognize that's going to take time. And we want to be there to be a resource and also try and raise concerns when necessary. So that's a reason why I'm involved. In terms of capacity to aid on topics, I don't have that much capacity. We are trying to work on our existing workload and keep the door open so that we can have tighter integration as things solidify down the road, if that makes sense.
Definitely is. Just because you mentioned OpenStack and all that, I guess that anything regarding Ironic and provisioning management system is something that is close to your heart. right?
Yes, I served as the project leader for 7 development cycles. I
Mhm.
helped create Bifrost. I worked as a contributor on Triple-O. So it's
Okay.
that whole thing is, I'm very familiar with it.
It's good to know. I can tell you about internal efforts that we have with NVIDIA regarding that, which we always thought in the to to align them eventually into the whole OPI effort. We talked about adding this DPU entity into management provisioning systems like Ironic, integration with different open source projects, especially within Red Hat.
That's actually something we're already working on.
Mhm.
The reality that we see based upon customer feedback is largely that a server is a distinct entity, and you may have sub devices in that, and we're kind of trying to approach that as well, you may need to do ad hoc things, but you may need to orchestrate the entire thing together in one sequence. And that requires different approaches. And so we're trying to build in some of the stuff that we know we'll need to facilitate a lot of that as time moves forward. So I'm happy to, if you want to sync offline, I'd be happy to kind of talk through some of the details, and I can probably point you to other folks in NVIDIA who might also be aware of those things, or might need to become aware.
Okay, sure. We can think offline. I think that if it will be relevant, we can definitely have even a short session in this working group for a review of the existing lesson learned from the effort.
I would be happy to. So
that would be great. Okay, so let's continue. Lee?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
I'm just, as you know, it's the first meeting I'm leading of this OPI, so I just wanted to get to know the different participants in the group. So I posted in the Slack channel a list of 4 introduction questions, and I am doing a round table.
Okay.
Just to get to know the different people here. My goal is basically to sort of map out past experience of different people here, and your objective from OPI. Where do you see this group headed, and how does the effort that you're currently doing internally in your company map out to existing thing that has been done here?
Okay. So Lee Ballard, I work in Dell server device engineering, right? So I've actually worked closely with Yuval at NVIDIA and counterparts, different systems management architects. So I'm not part of the iDRAC team. I'm not part of the BMC team, but part of the, kind of a software architect working for the devices. So coordinate with the vendors and kind of try and work with iDRAC and push requirements back and forth. So it's a lot about how cards integrate with our servers. Also work with OS vendors like Red Hat, Microsoft, and things like that. So a lot of coordination and collaboration. Been working on DPUs now for probably more than 2 years. Can't remember quite back when it started, but did a lot of work on the Monterey project with VMware, right? And the integrations required for that. So I think, for me, OPI is kind of the open source equivalent of some of that work, but it'll definitely be different, I think. So it's all about integrating or having a better integration with servers and DPUs. So I don't know if that was all 4 of your questions, but
No, I think this was very good. This answered all of my questions. Okay, Oscar.
Hello, Oscar Perez. I'm a software architect at NVIDIA, working on host management, in other words, all the VMCs. Right now, we are focusing on the DPU VMC. So there are a lot of work there. You know, customers, they're asking for a lot of features to be implemented on the DPU VMC. So we are being pretty busy adding them to the new Bluefield 3. My experience before joining NVIDIA a year ago, I worked for CT Systems, a hybrid cloud provider, for 5 years. And before that, I worked for HP for 15 years. I was in the ILO team. So I know a lot about VMCs. I've been pretty much doing remote management processors for more than 20 years now. So my focus on the OPI is try to collaborate the best I can, and also take the ideas from here to implement to the DPU VMC on the Bluefield cards. That's it.
Thanks a lot. Raul.
Hey, hello everyone. This is Rahul Sachdev. I'm working at Marvell right now. I joined Marvell 1.5 years back. Initially, I was working on storage solutions, and past 6 months I've been working on the DPU provisioning and telemetry. So I was working on the SZTP solution internally, and maybe start looking at telemetry also soon. Prior to Marvell, I was working at a startup where we were accelerating Cassandra database using FPGAs. So I have a little bit experience there as well. So yeah, I think Chetan already covered what Marvell's objective is with OPI. So yeah, I guess that's it from my side. Yeah.
Just the last part is capacity.
I mean, as and when required. I mean, just like provisioning, right? So we have kind of took some time and gain some expertise internally, and now we can maybe contribute back. So planning similarly in telemetry and inventory part. So as and when required, we can adjust. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Reza.
Yeah, hello, Gal. First of all, thank you for taking the leadership role, and do want to thank Boris for his chairmanship, and Lee for filling in as well. So really do appreciate you guys. So thank you very much. Reza Bacchus, HPE. I am a hardware system architect, working on servers in the compute business unit. So my background is primarily hardware. I've worked on things like memory and other options, drives, NICs that plug into the server, things that plug into the server, power supplies, fans, drives, those kinds of things. Some system architecture as well. And what we're looking for, our participation in OPI is primarily around, adopting standard mechanisms where, as a server vendor, we do not have to do anything unique for this new class of devices called DPUs or smart IOs or smart NICs. We don't want to have to write special BMC code or special UEFI code to accommodate these devices in our servers, because we would like to adopt as many DPUs as possible, or be able to sell as many DPUs as possible in our servers without having to curate a select list that we can support. So that's our goal in OPI, sort of to standardize and get DPU vendors all on the same page with us, and other system vendors as well. I've been working very similar to Lee. Been working on DPUs for maybe a year and a half. Excuse me, on the Project Monterey. That was my introduction to DPU. Time that I can that I'm committing to OPI is probably about 2 hours per week. It's 1 hour for this meeting and another communication, other communications internally, solving problems internally. So about 2 hours per week. There are a couple of other participants from HPE that usually join this call. They are more focused on the APIs, and I am more focused on the sort of the boot sequencing, the reboot, powering up, those kinds of, very early initialization, the boot sequence, essentially. Yeah, that's my area of interest. But the other folks, Toshi, Cannon, and Louis, they look more at the actual APIs.
Thanks a lot. So from what you described so far, I think that the things that have been discussed so far in OPI are really relevant to your day-to-day work. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Is there a topic which you think that we should push for or touch base on and haven't got to it yet?
Certainly would like to see resolution on the boot sequence, and boot sequence, rebooting, error handling, catastrophic error handling from a hardware point of view. Those would like to see resolution on that as quickly as possible.
Okay, thanks a lot for
Thank
that. Okay, next one, Stephen.
Hello, Stephen Royer. I work at Red Hat in the Office of the CTO for Emerging Technologies. Personal expertise, most of my background is in firmware development, virtualization and virtualization management, with a little bit of AI thrown in the mix. So in terms of OPI, lifecycle provisioning group, I mean, one of my main goals was to reach out within Red Hat and bring on the subject experts on that topic, to bring them into the meeting and keep them engaged. So thank you, Julia, for joining and helping out here. There's a, similar to, sort of the OpenStack side, there's also the OpenShift side. There's provisioning and lifecycle management topics there for both of those areas that are interesting to Red Hat.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. Do you feel like there are missing pieces that we haven't touched base on, or things that you would want us to push more towards regarding your your existing work within Red Hat in that area?
I mean, we've started on all of the major topics. There's in the lifecycle and provisioning repo, there's that list of sort of top level topics, and that's the list. That's what's important.
Okay, just making sure there are there aren't any things that you feel we need to focus on more. Okay, Vipin, I guess you are the last one in my list.
Yeah, hi Gal. Thanks for leading. I appreciate you stepping up. And of course, Boris is here. I still want to thank him, and I know he's going to contribute quite a bit. I am from AMD Pensando. And my area of interest and expertise is largely the infrastructure, cloud infrastructure to be precise. I've been working on building components for cloud infrastructure for, I don't know, 20, 25 years, maybe private cloud, public cloud, both. For OPI, lifecycle provisioning, my take is that, every DPU vendor is starting to build a DPU with a different perspective. And we all, as a vendor, I can say that, and I've studied others as well from the discussions and what I see. Trying to have one mechanism has been a challenge for us to standardize upon, for example. So maybe the market segments we all are addressing is different. Maybe the approach that we are coming from, either from, if you have legacy products, then you want to take advantage of that. If you are new entrant, you want to redraw everything on the board. If you are taking an approach of like, different strengths, I don't want to spell out each one of them, but that results into a lot of different things happening at the platform layer, and it's evident from the discussion so far that that we are all like quite sparse, and that is a result of the fact that it's initial stage. I mean, this is not as mature as CPU industry is, and so I'm here to give a point of view of what works and what doesn't work for AMD. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be the ultimate thing that gets taken into account. So take my point of view as one point of view, and I'm happy to describe what and how we see things from AMD and Pensando point of view. But at the same time, definitely, I think in long run, we need to align in order to make DPUs successful in the industry. About the time, I spent a lot of time on the API group. Have done a bunch of contributions along with others. The life cycle, I've been quite dominant, I would say, to be honest. And the reason is not because I'm not wanting to or anything. It's largely because things are, for the reason I mentioned, things are a bit diverse, and we are trying to grab one thing and run with it. And so I would say that, my time is mostly spent on the API, and I'm provisioning. So far, I've been like giving a point of view of what works and what doesn't work for our devices. If it becomes something, more tangible and or more end user driven. So for example, if you get more people who are wanting to, more people as in more users who are wanting to adopt certain things, that would give more affirmation and also me to convince other people within AMD to put more resources to it. And so right now I'm the only person contributing in OPI for various groups.
I see. Okay, that's good to know. And especially as a vendor, do you think that there are parts that we need to touch base on more within this group, or less?
I don't know if less will ever be sufficient, because we have to do more.
That's always true.
Yeah. I think there is a room for us to exchange why fundamentally we did certain things certain way, and often it can probably bring out the reasons why things are done in certain way, and therefore help us align on the implementation and standardization for those as well. For example, I mean, if you want to manage DPU from host in a service provider deployment versus if you want to manage DPU from infrastructure in the cloud deployment, the manageability aspects will be different, very different. And therefore, trying to embrace one way of doing it for all may or may not work because the requirements are fundamentally different. And so I definitely think we should have a lot more discussions, which we have been. I'm not suggesting we are not, but we do need to open up and also describe why we are doing what we are doing, as opposed to only discuss what we are doing or what we can not support.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that feedback. It's really valuable. Okay, folks, I'm done with my roundtable. I have to say, it took a bit more time than I expected, and I wanted to leave some time for the discussion. It's okay that we are left out the last 15 minutes for it. I don't know if we will conclude it today anyway. Boris, I would love to get Boris or Lee, I know that you've been leading this discussion so far. I know it's been open for a while now. What is your basic understanding of the point we are at right now regarding this?
Regarding this workgroup?
No, regarding the open discussion that we have on boot coordination method. From looking at the survey, at least, I see that we got 6 votes. I don't know if that's enough to bring to an actual conclusion or not, because we have 13 participants just in this call.
If you ask my personal opinion, I think the decision is very simple and we overcomplicating it. I think we all want to take option number 1, which is PCI Express in-band. And we all understand it will take longer term because either it requires a PCI Express SIG approval or ASIC changes in all the DPU vendors, but we all believe going forward, it's not a bad option at all. So my belief is take option number 1 and continue with PCI Express SIG, continue with DPU vendors to develop it for the next generations. That's totally fine. But I think the most realistic option is to adopt option number 3 right now, which is out of band. There are a lot of open questions there. So I think the vote is extremely simple and the alignment is extremely simple. Let's do option number 3 now. Let's also dedicate resources inside PCI Express SIG, either with DOE, work on next generation DPUs from different vendors to change the PCI Express implementation to implement the new class like Reza suggested. All of that is extremely important going forward. So for me, it's just overcomplicated issue. It's really that simple. Option 2 is absolutely not viable, doesn't really answer any of the concerns that we have. We'll discuss it several times. So I think the vote is extremely simple. Option number 3 now, and continue working on option number 1 in band with PCI Express SIG, defining the class and the registers going forward.
Okay, anyone has any input for that?
Hey, Boris, for option number 1, if we were to define a PCI mechanism, is this mostly for the host originated way of controlling the boot sequence, or is it applicable for an independent DPU management, not from the host?
This is all 3 options are focusing on the host managing the boot synchronization of DPUs and the server. For independent, I think we can launch a separate discussion, which is going to be extremely simple. The external control plane is going to do the boot sequencing between the DPU and the server, or independent DPU. So yes, this is focusing only on when DPU is inside the server and server is controlling the boot sequence.
Good.
Yeah, I
Okay.
just want to echo what Boris said earlier. We need to proceed with option number 3 as quickly as possible, and then we can, work with other standards organizations such as PCI to get a more robust solution in place.
Yeah, from Marvel's side also, totally echo what Boris just said.
And I'm not seeing Intel representation, but Dan Daly from Intel last time expressed exactly the same, that Intel will be okay with any option and they can vote positively on option number 3. short-term and long-term can work with us on the option number 1 PCI Express, but they can be, speak up and Dan Daly and his team.
Okay, so first of all, it's good to have everyone in agreement here. We are also in NVIDIA thought that option 3 is the most feasible and relevant one for the immediate phase. Regarding option 1, one thing that we saw a lot is that a lot of the time the host is considered to be untrusted in this DPU environment. And sometimes we have customers or people saying the host shouldn't be part of the DPU provisioning process. Do you think that we have a collision here?
I personally don't believe we have a collision because still, at least at Dell, we see 3 types of customers. We still see a lot of customers that view DPUs as just an accelerator card of the server. Host is completely trusted. DPU is just accelerator card, and then you need to way to boot synchronize and manage that from the server, and server is completely trusted. We do see new customers emerging that start to say that DPU is completely untrusted. For that, again, we have the different mechanism how to allow and disallow. I see that NVIDIA also sees similar picture of, at least from the publication that I see on white papers and blogs that they follow. So I think it's not collision, but we just need to allow several methods for several customers and see how do we keep prevent or solve both use cases for trusted and untrusted host.
Okay. So for untrusted host, definitely we also always have option 3, right?
Exactly.
So
once we move to option 1, I'm not saying we need to remove support for option 3. I think we need to go with option 3, add option 1, especially some companies asked us for option number 1 for the servers that don't have the platform BMC or server BMC of their own. So they did want a solution which is absolutely in-band and doesn't involve the third-party platform or server BMCs. So I think these options are going to coexist, at least in my mind.
Okay. Oscar, Bracha, do you have anything to add here? So I think it kind of aligns.
Sorry, just last comment, Gal. Even if you adopt option 3, there are still a lot of open questions, and Reza will agree with me, right? So yes, we say this is a method, we have several pictures and graphs, but what exactly protocol we're doing? Are we aligning on MCTP PLDM over USB going forward with the Goldfinger's connector on the CAM cards? What we're doing in the meantime? If we go in with PLDM, what are the registers and specific fields we're using in the messages? So there are a lot of still open questions. Even if we say option 3 is a go, we need to start deep diving with Oscar. I know he's low level. Lee is definitely expert here, Reza as well. We need to deep dive on those questions and try to achieve a standard here, and maybe use DMTF standard body to help us standardize on those things if we are adopting PLDM, which comes from DMTF.
Yes, absolutely. Going with
agree.
option 3 is just it's just saying we're going to take this path, and then we have to go work out all the details in that path.
Correct.
Yeah,
Totally
and
agree.
PLDM will be the preferred option, because even once we get the USB solution with the next generation of PCI Express, we can also use PLDM on top of CDP, on top of USB.
Okay, sounds good. So is this something that we can take, just because I don't know the process here, Boris, this something we can take on this week steering committee?
Absolutely.
Great. Then
Send
piggy
it-
bank
send a message-
of your hard work, but
Send a message beforehand to Joe White to ask to add this to the agenda, and then we can have a formal vote there and adopt it and publish it on the website.
okay, sounds good to me. Great. Anyone else has any other topic he wants to raise in the last 5 minutes? Good. Then thank you all for joining. I will not be here, probably won't be here next week, so I'll find someone else to replace me, if that indeed would be the case. Anyway, I'll post an agenda prior to the meeting on Slack. And if anyone has anything he wants to comment, want to talk about, things he needs to dig into a bit, feel free to comment, post on Slack, ping me personally. All methods apply. Thanks, folks. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.